let's talk about the Pittsburgh Steelers and a potential trade. We thought it sailed. We thought it was over. The last couple of days, the last week and a half, maybe, we've been talking about the Pittsburgh Steelers. They're done. They're not looking at a wide receiver anymore. That ship has passed. And seemingly, I will say that there's a lot of people going on the radio. There are a lot of people, answering in mailbags and saying, oh, the Steelers are in on a trade. Nah, never mind. They're not in on a trade anymore. And it's very lopsided. The one person who's been very consistent is Jerry Dulac. And people have their opinions about Jerry Dulac, and some people say, hey, that is the heart and soul of Pittsburgh Steelers insider, and other people say sometimes he's right, sometimes he's not. Doesn't matter. In this case, he's been very, very consistent, and even when he's been in the mode of, I'm not totally sure that's going to happen, he's let it be known that there's a possibility that it could when there is a possibility that it can. He was dead on when it came to Justin Fields. The Pittsburgh Steelers wanted Kenny Pickett to be that guy, and they wanted Russell Wilson to be the guy that pushed him, but Justin Fields is a guy that if it was presented to them, they couldn't pass up. He got that one right. Maybe he's on the verge of another one. Maybe we're looking at it right now and we're saying, hey, Jerry Dulac may know something, because he always knows a little bit of something. A couple of weeks ago, he dropped the bigger than Mike Williams, a bigger catch than Mike Williams, and I know he's been waiting to use that one for a long time, so glad that he got to. And then this morning, or yesterday, I guess, Wednesday, during his chat on Pittsburgh Post-Gazette, he dropped that the Steelers, they might have another thing coming. Quote, I would never say never when asked about a trade for a wide receiver or one more significant splash move coming. But I think the major moves are done, though I still won't rule a trade out of some significance. I reached out immediately once I saw that, started asking around, hey, what's significance? What does this mean? Is this a bunch of nothing, or does Jerry know something? And the replies I got were all pretty much along the same lines. Jerry might be onto something here, and it's definitely something to monitor. Now, that can mean a lot of things. It can mean Brandon Ayuk. It could mean two names that I'm going to toss out here very soon from the Houston Texans that I think make a ton of sense after the Stephon Diggs trade. It could mean another name that we're not talking about currently, but maybe we should be talking about. I don't know. Bleacher Report tossed out a trade package for Brandon Ayuk that makes a lot of sense that I think we're going to talk about here in a minute. But let's start with Jerry's comments. You hear that one? You hear, I wouldn't rule out a trade of some significance. What's some significance? Is some significance a starting wide receiver? Is some significance Brandon Ayuk? Is some significance something bigger than Brandon Ayuk? And I don't know, T. Higgins, Justin Jefferson, who knows? Is that a move that's coming?
I think T. Higgins and Justin Jefferson and those players are more than some significance. But I do think that some significance to me would indicate somebody to slot into that number 2 role. And that could be a variety of different players. But the Pittsburgh Steelers have plenty of number 3s, as we continue to talk about, a couple number 4s on their roster, and they have one bona fide number 1 in George Pickens. So to me, some significance is somebody that is going to be able to be in that number 2 role for the Steelers, and somebody that is expected to be able to have that type of season, and not a lot of hope that he could potentially have that kind of season if given the opportunity. So I think it's somebody with a proven track record.
Okay, so what's a proven? Are we talking proven track record as in, I don't know, just like a superstar, or a proven track record in a wide receiver 3, like, I don't know, say Noah Brown?
I would think Noah Brown fits into that. And there's somebody else that you mentioned and we're going to talk about. I don't think he fits into that. And that's where I'm kind of leaning here. I think you look at what Noah Brown did last season in just 10 games, having over 500 yards for a rookie quarterback. You bring him into Pittsburgh in a number 2 role on a team that's not going to rely heavily on their wide receivers. I think he could fit what the Steelers need in that number 2 role. He's not a superstar, but he is capable of putting up decent games and changing certain games, even though it's just few and far between.
Sorry, Jeff Hartman got me here. I appreciate you, man. Made me laugh. Okay, so I agree with you. I think that some significance has to mean that they could play a role on the Pittsburgh Steelers offense immediately. I think that some significance means that this is not another Quez Watkins or Van Jefferson, but somebody that could impact this team. I will say that I think it could be more potential driven and that's where the second guy comes into place that we're going to talk about, then, oh, okay, proven commodity. This is a guy. Because don't get me wrong, I think that Noah Brown, who is one of the two names that I think is definitely on the market for the Pittsburgh Steelers, or should be on the market for the Pittsburgh Steelers, is a better addition than Michael Gallup, is not as good of an addition as Tyler Boyd, but isn't super far down the board when it comes to that. Very reliable, back-to-back 500-yard seasons. A guy that could be your wide receiver 3 without any problem, and I think the Steelers would be open to that. I could also see this other guy in John Metchie, who could be a guy that, I don't know, he's a second-round pick 2 years ago. Last year was his first NFL season. He's got no role in Houston whatsoever. And maybe the Pittsburgh Steelers are looking at this as, hey, man, there's a lot of upside here for absolutely nothing. That you could look at it and say, maybe you can go after a guy who's 23 years old, who is still very young in his NFL career, who could make a lot of sense for the Pittsburgh Steelers, who could impact this team, and maybe not, but chances are you're not going to give up anything for him. But before we get to Metchie, you like Brown. Let's talk about Brown. I think Noah Brown is a good option, 28 years old, very reliable in Houston, a name that, I don't know, has been on the Steelers, or at least linked to the Steelers, named to fit for the Steelers on multiple occasions. And, well, I don't know. I'm not going to say it doesn't make any sense for them. If you're looking wide receiver 3, I think that's a good option. What are you giving up for Noah Brown? And what is his role in Pittsburgh?
I'm not sure I'm giving up too much for Noah Brown, but again, then it becomes, what do the Texans need and what do they want in return? But also looking at them and saying, okay, you just got Stephon Diggs, you have, Tank Dell there, and you also have Nico Collins. So where do you have a place for Noah Brown or John Metchie? So somebody has to go. You're looking to get rid of somebody. And I think the price is going to be higher for Metchie simply because he's younger, but I also don't think he fits the Steelers because I think they need somebody that's a little bit more proven, especially with the receiving core that they have. If they had that number 2 in hand below George Pickens, then I understand. You bet on upside. That's what they're kind of doing with Calvin Austin in year 3/2. It's kind of the same as Metchie, but I think they need somebody that's bona fide, that can put up numbers and has put up numbers, and somebody like Noah Brown, who, while he is a little bit older, he's 28 years old, he's on an upward climb his last 2 years, as opposed to a guy like we talked about earlier in the week in Michael Gallup, who seems like he's declining.
Here's what I want to talk about next. Size matters. We all know it, and it's important to remember it in times of need. I recently went to a small law firm in hopes of getting the compensation I felt I deserved. I didn't, and to this day, I still think about the money that I may have missed out on. I filled out mounds of paperwork, then waited around for what felt like forever, got phone call after phone call telling me what I did not do right in the process, and it was expensive. All to get underwhelming compensation and almost zero satisfaction. Fortunately, if you ever get seriously injured and want to file a claim, you don't have to go through the same hassle I did. Instead, you can make it way easier by finding out if you have a claim in just a few clicks on your phone and working with America's biggest injury law firm with the promise of being for the people. Here comes Morgan & Morgan, today's sponsor. Morgan & Morgan has over 1,000 attorneys working in all 50 states fighting to get their clients the money they deserve. In recent months, they've achieved verdicts for their clients, including one that is worth $26 million. That is 40 times the highest insurance offer. And they're absolutely free unless you win. I got lowballed. Don't make the same mistake I did. Fighting big companies takes a big firm. And with America's biggest injury law firm, you're ready to take on insurance companies of any size. Don't overthink it. You can start your claim in just a few clicks by following the link in our description or by going to www.forthepeople.com/allsteelers. It only takes a few minutes to find out if you have a case. And if you have, it might be worth millions. Okay, I agree. I think that's the move. If I'm, and again, like I mean, at least the move when it comes to Michael Gallup and that comparison. Mm-hmm. If I'm giving up anything for Noah Brown, I'm giving up what, a 5th round pick?
Something like that, yeah.
Maybe minimum 5th round pick or max 5th round pick. I think maybe you could get a 6th round for him, just because at some point the Houston Texans are going to have to make a decision on who's heading out of here, because that's where they are right now. You know, you trade for Stephon Diggs and you look at it. I mean, you look at it and you just say, you can't keep 6 wide receivers. Chances are you're not going to keep 5 wide receivers that are all capable of playing in a game. And at that point, you got to get rid of somebody, maybe 2 people. And why not? Why not trade somebody for whatever you can get? You know, the Kevin Dotson, Kendrick Green situation for the Pittsburgh Steelers last year. If you're going to cut him, you might as well trade him. And it doesn't matter what you're going to get in return because it's better than just cutting a guy. And I think Noah Brown could be a dude who, 28 years old, you're not giving up for much. What in that same aspect? What about a Robert Woods? You're looking at a Robert Woods, 31 years old. He's a little bit older. He's coming off his worst season in the NFL, which is still just under 500 yards. So it's not even a bad year, but notably down compared to years past. Is that a name that you'd consider?
To me, a Robert Woods is in a similar vein as a Michael Gallup. A lot of injuries. He's a guy that has a proven track record, but again, he's on that decline. And you mentioned he's 31 years old. You have a couple of veterans already in Van Jefferson and also in a guy like Quez Watkins, who's younger, but has been around the league a couple years. I would say no to Robert Woods. And again, of all these names, Noah Brown is the highest. Now, would I like them to go out and get a nice name in the draft instead? Yes, but also there's other areas of need in the draft as we've talked about, and I'm sure we'll continue to talk about because it's officially April.
Yeah, that's very true. All right, so I'm gonna give my point for John Metchie now because I think John Metchie's my dude, and I think if I'm the Pittsburgh Steelers, I'm going after him. Even though you make a lot of sense with Noah Brown, and I get it, and I think a lot of people are going to go after Noah Brown. John Metchie to me has a ton of upside. At one point was viewed as the Tank Dell of the Houston Texans, a guy that's going to come in here and make a lot of noise and be their next stud wide receiver, help a young quarterback, so on and so forth. Tank Dell explodes onto the scene. There's nothing you could do about it. That dude's a monster. You got to rock with who's your monster. Nico Collins is already a monster. You got to let him do his thing as well. Now you're looking at it and going, John Metchie doesn't really have a role with the Pittsburgh Steelers, or with the Houston Texans, excuse me, but maybe he's got a role with the Pittsburgh Steelers, even as a wide receiver 3, to give up, I don't know, 4th round pick for him, a 5th round pick for him. I think you're getting talent wise better than what you'd get in the 4th or 5th round in this NFL draft. And at that point, I don't know. I think he makes some sense. Like, I think if you're considering, I mean, people have had the conversation, are you double dipping at wide receiver if you're the Pittsburgh Steelers? If you are, why not just go make a trade for John Metchie? And if Jerry Dulac believes that there's a trade coming for the Pittsburgh Steelers, and he believes that one more, significant move is on their way, then I think that that's significant enough to at least carry some potential for this team and secures up. I mean, look if you could walk into the season, I don't have any faith in Van Jefferson. I have almost no faith in Quez Watkins. Cordero Patterson, I have faith in, but I don't know how they're going to utilize him in the offense. So he's a question mark. If you could walk into the season with George Pickens, a rookie that you drafted decently high, and then John Metchie and Calvin Austin as your 1, 2, 3, 4, I'm not upset about that. I think that that's a good place to be. I think the Steelers have one of the worst wide receiver rooms in football right now. And, it's very easily fixed. All you have to do is add a number 2 and you're right back to where you need to be. But you need to have more options, better options. And I think that John Metchie's a dude who could come in here and be that option. I think he makes a ton of sense for Pittsburgh. I think he could play the outside and the inside. I don't know. He's a better Van Jefferson by a mile. And I'm not comparing the two play-wise. I'm just saying that he's a better option than Van Jefferson. Noah Brown's the reliable one. Mm-hmm. There are minimum questions, but at that point, like, I don't know. What can you look up Noah Brown's contract? I think that plays a role into this, because if you're looking at Noah Brown and you're just saying, hey, that's the move, I think that you settled a little bit. I think that that's significant, but not significant enough. I mean, he's almost just another Cordero Patterson in my eyes. And at that point, you already have that guy. He's on your roster. So there's nowhere to really go.
Yeah, he has 1 year left on his contract, and his cap hit is $3.58 million.
$3.5 million. I'm all about that. I think that that's an easy move, but I'm still going. I think the upside of Metchie's there. And I think if you could get Metchie for cheap, I think if they're both, do you think the Houston Texans would trade both guys for the same price? Not simultaneous, not at the same time, but do you think Noah Brown's price tag and John Metchie's price tag are the same thing?
I don't. I think John Metchie might be a little bit more expensive, but again, at this point, they're looking to get rid of one of them. And if they're trying to trade both, then the price is going to go down because people are going to say, well, Why would I not just want the least expensive one? Because you're either betting on a proven commodity as a number 3, number 2, or betting on an unproven guy that had a lot of stock coming out of college, but has suffered some unfortunate off-field issues that has slowed down his progression. So
Yeah.
I think the price is around the same, but I would say Metchie's is probably a little bit higher just because he is younger.
Yeah. Okay. So I agree. I think that if you're getting a sixth for Noah Brown, you're going a fifth for John Metchie, which the Steelers don't have. Maybe a fourth, maybe next year's fourth, if that's comfortable enough for you, which I don't know if you could trade that, I guess, because the sixth round pick with Justin Fields, I don't know how that works. I think even if the price tag is a little bit higher to get 5 years and probably more potential, I'm feeling okay about John Metchie.